I would call this a special episode.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
With Kathleen Wood here. Every time I talk to you, I learn something new and something that we take and implement in our business almost immediately.
Yeah, it's true.
Just a wealth of knowledge. So just to introduce everybody who's listening, our guest today is Kathleen Wood. Her expertise and leadership qualities started with various executive positions in large companies before moving to the Chief Operating Officer of Raising Cane's and helping them grow from 2 to 100 locations. In 2007, she founded Kathleen Wood Partners, an innovative growth strategy firm. Through this venture, she's been a driving force behind the rapid expansion of several Long Island-based food service brands, including names that you probably have heard of if you're from Long Island: Taproom, Bango Bowls, Toast Coffee and Kitchen. And her strategic insights have been pivotal in transforming these local favorites into big regional powerhouses. She has a few books. One is called The Best Shift of Your Life, The Restaurant Manager's Guide for Success Outside the Restaurant. The other is called Founderology. And we're really excited to have you here today and talk us through sort of what a growth strategist is and how these restaurants can unlock the secrets to help them grow.
Well, look, first, thank you so much for having me here. I think the work that you and Jenny do to help restaurants really be successful and grow is also so fantastic. And I was so happy that our paths crossed and we got to work together on a few projects. And, I think the work you're doing is instrumental in helping people, especially in today's economy, really find ways to find the magic of their menu to really help them drive and market their businesses too. So I also feel like this is a special edition because I'm with both of you too. So this is great.
So hopefully we live up to the hype.
Yeah, come on.
So I was saying before that the whole story of how Raising Cane's went from 2 to 100 locations could be a podcast in itself. But I think it's something that's very interesting to people. Do you want to give us a high-level overview of sort of what that was like and what were some of the key milestones? And then we'll kind of move on from that.
Yeah, so I think, I think the Raising Cane's story is just still, even today, an extraordinary story of being a founder-led business. And that's one of my passions is in Kathleen Wood Partners. We are a growth strategy firm, but our real focus is working with founder-led businesses because of my personal belief that, founders are the really backbone of our economy. They're where the innovators, the trailblazers, and the change makers are. And so when I was done working in kind of my corporate world, I wanted to really take all what I saw when I was working in these big companies was big companies have all the resources that they need. But here were these great people with great ideas, and they had to wait till they were a big company to get access to these big ideas. So what was the impetus for my consulting practice was I wanted to take all the resources I had from these big companies, go find great founders who wanted to do great things with their businesses and help them grow and scale their businesses. And so in the first couple of years that I had started my consulting practice, I hosted a conference called Concepts of Tomorrow. And we had all these like cutting edge concepts that today people take for granted that are out there, right? Because they're like, oh, they've been around forever. But everybody starts small at some point. And one of the people that attended was Todd Graves, the founder of Raising Cane's. And at that point, he had 2 restaurants. He was a couple years out of college. And he was just, the hit of the conference. And he talked to everybody. And at the end, we were talking. He's like, do you want to come see my concept? And I'm like, I would love to. And, that was the beginning of a great relationship. And I had the wonderful opportunity to work with Todd and his team in the early days as we, for almost 6 years as a growth strategist consultant, where we took the company from 2 restaurants to about 24 at that point. Wow. And then I came back in after a short break as the president and COO of the company and worked with Todd and the team as we grew Raising Cane's over 100 restaurants. And today they have over 800 and they're still fast growing. Wow. But I think a couple of key things people could take from this is that he was very clear as a founder that, he wanted to surround himself with people who brought in expertise that he did not have because he wanted to grow productively and profitably. I think the other thing he had was a very clear vision early on, and it still to this day is a very clear vision of how they treat their team members, how they operate their restaurants, and their personal passion of still not changing the menu because, that commitment to his vision. And I think the third thing that people could probably take from him is that he's truly a genuine person. His goal was to live his dream, but also support other people in their dreams. And I can honestly say that he's been incredibly supportive of, my journey, but I'm just one of hundreds and thousands of people that he's been supportive of their journey. And I think that for the people listening, it's kind of like, when you're small, you're trying to do a lot of things. But what's really important is to get clear about why you're doing it and what do you ultimately want to do.
Yeah.
And then take your passion and fuel it with purpose and, go for it. Because if you stay focused, Todd's a very big fanatically focused, as you can tell from Cane's, but it doesn't mean that they haven't been innovative or, been more relevant. So it was I feel very grateful for an incredible journey. And still, you never really quit Raising Cane's. You're always somehow connected with it. But it's truly an incredible journee.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So Todd Graves' his name?
Yep.
So at 2 locations is when he met you. He sounds like a special guy.
Yep.
And what qualities do you recognize in him? And I think this is sort of segueing into what qualities does it take for growth? What did you recognize in him? The fanatically focused, I think, is important.
Right.
But what are some key things that you noticed?
Yeah, I would probably say that there were probably 3 things. One, it was just this intense passion for what he was doing. He had the courage of his conviction for this belief. Because if you really think about it, you're 24 years old, you're trying to do a chicken tender concept, right? You only have 5 menu items, and everyone's telling you that it's never going to work. And, and we kind of always laughed at that because even 10 years into it, people were like, this is never going to work. And there's still people today. Chicken tenders, are you kidding me? It's never. Okay, let's all calm down. They're a multi-billion-dollar company now, so
Right.
it is actually working.
Yeah.
So I think that passion for what you're trying, your passion and your purpose is one. I think the second part is really being fanatically focused because, starting a business, as it takes a lot of internal fortitude and resilience, right? Yeah. Because it's not only what people tell you, but it's also the fact that you're trying to chart a new path, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I think that. And then I think the fourth quality that I think is probably the one that, still to this day just rings through is that real, genuine authenticity as a person, like really caring about people and the customers and the experience. And, we have those. Those are easy to have when you're smaller. I think what makes Raising Cane's so spectacular is that still exists today with, over 800 restaurants.
Yeah.
I think that's something that makes specifically like the restaurant industry unique is that like hospitality is so important that you can always tell like when there is a founder or someone that starts the restaurant or opens up many locations, it's because their own genuine passion is shining through to their customers,
Yeah.
Right. And Jenny,
back.
that's why we need founders, right?
Yeah.
Because right now, I know especially in Long Island, we're watching major chains just vanish, right?
Yeah, for
and you have
sure.
to say what happened to their heart and their soul. And then you have to say, well, when's the last time somebody brought that founder energy and passion to it?
Yeah.
And
So
we
true,
could probably all tick off that it's been several years for
Yeah.
some of them, unfortunately, right?
It's needed now more
Right.
than ever with, the lack of connection that we're having, like restaurants and going out to eat. It's like
Right.
the last kind of the
Right.
last thing that we all physically do together as customers and as, business owners, founders,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that passion is the glue.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Especially as you scale, which is kind of where I want to take this next a little bit, is as you get away from 1 or 2 and you get to 4 or 5, the world changes a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not so much the repeat customer. There's a new location that's conveniently closer, right? It's brand new people who have no idea who you are. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to get some perspective from you on is at some point there's sort of a proof of concept and then there's sort of a leap and you got to get out of the kitchen and you got to start working on the business. And I was wondering if you had any insight into kind of at how many locations or at what point do you feel like it's the right time to grow?
Right. Well, I think that part, a lot of people say they want to grow, and that's a beautiful thing. But to really grow, it is a path that you have to be committed to, right? Because you know from your own business, and I know it from mine. You know, everyone's, oh, you're so lucky, you could do whatever you want. You have no pressures because you don't have a boss. And I'm like, oh my God, we all have bosses. You know, they just come in different forms and shapes, right?
Sure, yeah.
So when you think about founders in the restaurant industry, you know, if you've come up in the restaurant industry and it's your concept and you've been working in it day or night, when you're at 1 or 2, you really do believe that you could muscle your way through it. So we had about a couple of weeks. I'll muscle my way through it. I'll just work harder. And so that's typically what happens. The founders work harder at it.
Yeah.
And that gets you only so far, because at a certain point, that founder's working so hard, or that they get exhausted, or they get fatigued, or one bad thing, or honestly, they can't keep their eye on all the balls. So either they're going to lose customers or they're going to lose money, because it's one person against all of the team members and all the customers and all the competition.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, you have to make a decision. You know, if you want to stay small, that is an amazing thing. Stay small and become iconic and become the community's restaurant. Yeah. That is a beautiful thing. You can create a leadership legacy with that, right? And there's many successful single unit, 1-2 unit people out there,
Definitely.
right? But if you want to grow, you as a founder, you have to start to now think about, I can't wear every hat in the whole place here.
Yeah.
And I have, to your point, Andrew, I have to stop working in my business. I have to start working on my business. But I find that where founders get a little bit tripped up on this, especially when it gets to 3, 4, and 5, is, you know, trusting the people that they're letting go to. Because if I let it go to this person and they screw it up, my life becomes harder. If I let it go and they don't do it exactly like me, you know, then, my life becomes harder again. And so that's where, as a founder, you have to really start to say, wait a minute, I have to start to employ some systems and processes and take my big brains and start putting them into systems so that I can help people see it my way, as opposed to insisting they do it my way.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, because we go through the same thing. And I think that's kind of the first milestone of growth, is what got you there is not what it's going to be to get you to the next phase.
Right.
So we have all this great experience and great knowledge, but we almost have to systematize it, productize
Get it out of our head.
You've
and
got to
put
go
it
down
somewhere
your head.
else. Yeah.
The recipe, no
Right.
pun intended, and get that so it can be replicated.
Yes. Well,
else.
that's how you scale.
Right.
You scale by taking your brilliance, systematizing it. It's like railroad tracks, right? Once you lay the track, you can run any train you want on it.
Yeah.
But you have to invest the time and the energy to put it on the track. And when you're a founder that's working in your business, you're like, go, 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 go all day. And then you're like, well, I'll do that when I get home tonight. And then it's like 2 a.m. You're like, I am not going to sit at this laptop writing my, ops manual at the moment. So there is that breaking point. And when you have that breaking point, because when you get to 3, 4, and 5, even if you have 50 people working in each restaurant, let's just say, and you have 5 restaurants, there's one of you, 250 people. You're outnumbered, and you can't drive fast enough, and you can't be there, and there's not enough time left. So you have to then make that decision, am I going to keep opening restaurants, or am I going to start to build a company that opens restaurants?
Yeah.
And that's Todd Graves was so smart. He built a company to open restaurants, not just kept open. He didn't just keep opening. But I could show you founder after founder that when they finally made that decision that I'm building the company, like James Bonanno and the taproom team, right?
Yeah.
They built the company that now opens up restaurants that are amazing.
I've heard it referred to as the middle, being stuck in the middle, and it's like death by 1,000 cuts. You're not big enough. You got to get through that, right?
Yes.
And we've been guilty of this. Is it takes longer than it should.
Yeah.
If you just had that fanatical focus,
Right.
Because you got to get through that. And we've seen a lot of, unfortunately, customers of ours, 1 or 2 locations, proof of concept. They think they're going to go to 10 or 20. They open the 3rd, and then a year later, all of them are done.
Right. Because they're still trying to muscle their way through it, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think about the middle, I think that you should master the middle and kick it in the ass, quite frankly.
Yeah.
because the middle, you're stuck in the middle because you're wearing too many hats. And you only know what you know. So at a certain point, you have to decide, and people say, well, I can't afford to bring in an expert. I can't afford to bring in somebody. I can't afford to bring in Kathleen Wood. Well, but doing what you're doing, you can't afford to continue to do that either.
Right.
So you either have to make that commitment at that moment. It's that leap of faith that you believe so much in what you're doing that it will work out. Because when you talk to most founders, and when I talk to most founders, they will say that breakthrough moment was when they were like, I went out and got people who'd been there, done that before, because they could help accelerate me. And that's exactly why I started my business. Is I wanted to be that person that who's been there, done that, and I can help accelerate you, because there's nothing more painful than being stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, like, wow, that's a tough spot.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. It would be interesting to hear from you when we talk about not muscling through.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, what do they need to do? Like, so putting systems and getting it out of your head as they go from 3 to 6, like kind of what are they hiring specific people? Like what is that? Because they got to something's got to give, right?
Right. So in my practice, we have a framework that's called the Power of One framework. And what we did was we studied what it takes for organizations, teams, businesses, our own clients. What does it take for them to really put themselves on a path to accelerate their business? And what we found is, in studying these groups, we found 3 major factors. One is when they had this Power of One framework literally embedded into what they were doing, they sustained success for very long periods of time. They competitively differentiated themselves, and they built a legion of leaders. And we found that there were 6 factors of greatness in the framework, right? And the number one factor in the framework was you had to have clarity of vision. You have to know what you're building. It can't be, I'm building, like, if you think about it, I want to make $50 million. That is a beautiful thing, but it doesn't inspire people to get out of bed. It only inspires you to get out of bed. It doesn't inspire anybody else, right? And no one wants to come and work for you going, oh, good, I'm going to help you make $50 million and I'll get my paycheck. So you have to, so we push very hard to get people to tell us to really work with people to get that clarity of vision that is greater than a financial number. Because when you look at great teams, great organizations, they are very clear about of what winning is for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of founders, when they're first starting out, they're trying to survive. Then they're trying to survive and maybe thrive a little bit. But they're just stunned that they made it this far, right?
Yeah.
But they haven't had a moment to take that breath to say, why am I doing this? And you really have to connect on that profoundly deep why, because you need it, because growth is a roller coaster. And if you don't know why I'm very clear, I did it because I want to help founders let businesses succeed, accelerate, and win, right?
Yeah.
Great people doing great things. But that drives me every day. Founders have to have that same why.
Yeah.
So it drives them. And that's where we start with. The first part is, why are you doing this? And then what does winning look like for you, greater than a financial number?
Yeah. And I'm betting that when you're asking them those questions, you're getting them to think along these lines, probably for the first time, getting them to think in a way that they haven't before. Why am I doing this? I don't know why. I don't know. That's a good question.
Right.
So not to put you on the spot, do you have any examples of kind of what, like, a vision, like, is it a vision, like a mission statement? Is it a vision? Is it core, like processes or core values, or how do you kind of make that a tangible thing?
Right. Well, it's kind of all of those things, because when we really think about it, we think about a purpose statement, a vision statement, your core values, your non-negotiables, right? Yeah. And you really have to, and everyone's like, well, this seems just so like, I have big problems. Why am I spending time talking about this, right? It's just like, well, because, again, I could be an architect and you could come tell me I want to build a house, and I could build you a mini house, or I could build you a mansion.
Right.
So if we're not clear about what we're building, we could spend a lot of time and energy and still end up with something none of us like, right?
For sure, yeah.
So I think that the goal is to try to get people, when I think about great vision statements, they're a true north and they're inspiring. Like, they want to get people to get up every day. Just if we key in on Raising Cane's for a minute, that vision statement is still the same that it was almost 28 years ago, which is to serve quality quality chicken finger meals with a great crew, a cool culture, and to be actively involved in the community. And that,
Yes,
I get up every day because I'm with a great crew in a cool culture, and we're helping our community, and we're serving the best quality chicken finger meals in the world. It's not bulky. It's not laden with thousands of adjectives. A 16-year-old, team member can get that. When I worked with Walk-On's Bar and Bistro, theirs was very simple. It was to win because they were two walk-ons that were basketball players who started a restaurant concept, right?
Yeah.
And theirs was to win every day, every way, every one. And so every day we figured out, did you win or lose the shift? Did you win or lose the customer? Did we win or lose financially today? So, but it's that sometimes that it's so simple, but yet it's, but it's when it's so simple, it's profound. Because when you think about to win every day, every way, every one, I mean, there's a lot packed in there, but everybody can understand that to win or to lose, especially when you've been a walk-on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's that gives you the North Star of everything because, growth is filled with distractions, especially as you grow and as you have more opportunities, you have some more money. Like there are all different avenues you can go. And I think that that's really how you get out of the middle is to know who you are and probably even more importantly, know what you're not and know where not to go.
Exactly. And here's the other thing. When you think about the second factor of greatness we looked at, it was about you have to have a team now, right? So I believe that the clearer the leader, the clearer the team. But when the leader is not clear, right, then what's the team supposed to do?
Right.
I grew up in Chicago, so I have lived this my whole life being a Chicago Bear fan. Like, no one is clear. We're just clear that 10-6 or 10-8 is a winning season. And it's like, you're not even a champion at that point, And but that's because there's no clarity. Like there's no clarity in that culture that says we are going to win Super Bowls. Very different from, when we look at the Kansas City Chiefs or we look at, the good years of the New England Patriots. Those were or even the good years of the New York Giants. It was very clear that you're joining these, and I think about the New York Yankees, you're joining these teams to be a champion. You are not joining just to play baseball or football, right? And I think that that's what happens with founders is when they're not clear, they're hiring people with great resumes, but they may not be the right person for the team. And so really being clear allows you to really see this person's going to work, this person's not.
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh my God, I need people, so I'm just going to hire this person.
Yeah. I think that's a mistake people make, especially with like talking a little bit about our business with graphic design. Well, the hostess will make the menu because she's younger and she knows how to do it. And so you have the vision and hopefully it's clear. And now you start building the team. Yeah. And in the beginning, it's the bad news bears because everyone probably makes these mistakes of like, my loyal customer and I pay him in free tacos. We'll do my menu. Or my hostess does my social media because they have followers, or I do it myself. And then you got to kind of you just got to get through that.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the next phase of it is like now that assuming you're clear on the vision, and now you're ready to build your team. Right. How do you become? They say a leader with no followers is just a guy taking a walk. So
I love that.
How do you build not just people to work for you, but followers of the vision,
right?
And kind of what so in the growth plan, where how does that work in terms of like, there's just so many people to hire at that point, right? There's so many options.
Right. Well, I think you hit it on the right. One thing I have to say about your business, I feel like, when I think about the menus, and you've heard me say this so many times, but I really think it's, that's why I chuckle when they say, well, we gave it to the host. Okay, well, and we'll give it to the food runner next, right? I mean, what the heck? Yeah. But that's where, again, you're like, if you're working in your business, then you're missing the point that one of the most underutilized tools in the toolkit for sales driving is the actual menu, right? But if you're working in your business, it is let's shuffle it over here. But if you're working on your business, you're saying, how do I strategically use this menu to increase my profitability, get better margins, or even get more people to come back here more frequently because we're making it so challenging for them to what item they want to pick
Right.
that they have to come back again.
Yeah.
And I think you do such a brilliant job of helping and coaching, founders and, really, kind of, it's something that they're very close to, but
Yeah.
really helping them see the potential
Yeah.
of what their menu could do for them. So I think that I just had to say that because I think it's really important because
that's
it
all-
does,
that's all
it
Jenny.
does, it does crack me up when they say we're going to give it. I'm like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Right. But if you think about it, that's why you said the word already, Andrew. It's about, then you have to have a plan, right? When you're working in your business with one or two, you are extraordinary at firefighting, and you almost get, in my book, Founderology, I wrote a whole chapter dedicated to the founders, juice of the business. Like, things are going well. Okay, I'm going to blow it up because I don't feel the frenetic energy, right? Because I'm used to having that.
Yeah.
And, and that's one of the things about when you have a plan, it's supposed to calm down some of that energy and make you more proactive and less reactive. And
Right.
so I think that's this, that's our third kind of factor of greatness is have a written plan, And I always say, nobody gets in their car and just puts a key and go, I don't even know where I'm going to drive today. Nobody does that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody goes, I'm going to drive to California. I have no idea how I'm going to get there, I'll just take any, whimsical path I want to take, right? But I feel the same way about business. When you don't have a plan, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're going into your business every day with whatever the day brings me, and it could be good, bad, or anything. And I'm like, oh my God, come on, man.
Yeah.
Ray Kroc said, the only way to control your destiny is to create your destiny. And plans help you to create the destiny you want in the least painful way possible.
Yeah.
So I think that's that's where people, when they're growing, if they don't have that plan, they are like, oh my God, we're opening a restaurant in 30 days, we haven't hired anybody. Or, oh my God, we're opening a restaurant in 30 days, we don't have menus. Well, we haven't finalized the menu yet, and it's like, well, you're opening though in 2 weeks now. Well, just make something happen, Jenny and Andrew get it going, right?
Yeah. It's like,
We've
So,
gone into that,
so I'm an advocate as a growth strategist. I am definitely an advocate for proactive planning because learn on the piece of paper instead of learning with your bank account.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. And it's funny, like in my head, I have this sort of 3 locations, 4 or 5. We find that like around 4 or 5 locations, when they realize what you're talking about and they realize they have their vision and now they have their plan, the first thing they say is, what the hell am I doing with this menu in front of me? I gotta get a company to so that's when we get, it's like, all right. And then they go back to kind of like, all right, the plan, because you can't sit there and tinker on Canva with your menu for 4 hours when you should be putting together the growth plan.
Well, exactly. So this kind of comes back to wearing too many hats.
Yeah.
What's the hat you need to wear? And then where do you find either the expertise or the team member that can wear the other hats?
Yeah.
But I do think when you get to 4 or 5 restaurants, this is where the founder has to really search inside themselves and they have to be able to let go. And they have to, and my advice on this is if we're not performing surgery, we're not asking people to, donate an organ at this point. You're just asking somebody else to write the schedule this week. It's going to be okay, right? But if you can't let go at that point, then don't scale, because the whole point of scaling is it's a continuation of constantly letting go. But you want to let go with people that are prepared to accept it. You want to let go with people that are prepared, that are trained to do what you want them to do. You want to let go to experts who can take a load off your shoulders so that you could focus on doing what you do best, which is, as a founder, being visionary, growing, and, moving your business to another level of success.
Yeah. And I remember Jamie from Taproom, this was a couple of years ago, I was talking to him and we were talking about growing. I'm like, man, you got big plans. He's like, yeah, a big part of it was just getting out of the business. And he was like, I remember I was talking to Dave, my partner, and I was like, yeah, but I'm still gonna book the musical acts because like I know what works.
Yeah.
And then they're like, what the hell are we talking about here? We got 5 locations. I'm booking the musical acts for Patchogue. I got to get that out of my world.
Give it to someone else.
So as we kind of take this growth journey, what do you find, and it may change depending on the type of concept. What do you find like that first key hire, that first role is a lot of the time when they're starting to, like, they can outsource to agencies and to creatives like us, and that's fine. But the first full-time hire,
Yeah.
what do you feel like that a lot of times is the first hire that really helps them get to the next level?
I think some of it has to do with what are their superpowers to begin with, because they don't need to hire someone like them, because now we have friction, right?
Right.
So they have to hire somebody that can bring a value that maybe they don't want to look at, that they can bring a value that would be super helpful, that maybe is not on their scale of their superpowers. So a couple things I would say that I always recommend is, you have to have financial visibility in your business. If you don't, one of my philosophies is the greater the financial visibility, the greater the business sustainability is, right? And sometimes when you're a founder and you're very excited about your vision and you're very excited about all the things you're going to do with your vision, the last thing you want is a rain cloud of accounting to come talk to you about the fact that, these numbers are off, right? Not any offense to rain clouds or accountants, but it's kind of like, I have this big vision, and now they're like, we only have $5 in the bank account, right?
Yeah.
So that's where you get that little, but I think that that's an important, whether you hire that person, a bookkeeper, or that person is, a fractional person, or you outsource that, but that getting financial visibility is so significantly important, because without it, you cannot make a lot of great decisions.
Right.
And then if you think about internally, it usually has to do with operations.
Yeah.
Because we need somebody, especially when you're at 3 or 4 restaurants, there's just so much going on. And every time you want to do something, if it's founder centric, everything is going through you. So you're trying to build a company, answer these questions, take care of all this stuff. So usually in my mind, it's usually getting finance somehow shored up, and then getting operations better supported.
Yeah. I remember when we were at the Founders Growth Summit, I was there really just listening. I really wanted to just hear what everybody had to say. There was some heavyweights there. It was really an awesome experience.
Thanks. It was a great one.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we'll talk about that for sure a little bit. Hopefully you're doing it again.
Oh, absolutely.
Nice. And I didn't realize, like, in our world of like the agency world, like your first hire is some kind of account manager, that's some kind of customer service. You have to, have a line of communication that's like our front of the house, right?
Yeah.
But everybody was talking about HR as a big thing, and I didn't even realize, like, at 8, 9, 10 locations, you have hundreds and hundreds of employees and payroll and calling out sick, and I guess like the operational side, that's sort of like a big part of that. Like someone who is a director of operations, right, will administer, like, be like a de facto HR person, and staff people and things like that.
Yeah. HR, the human, I love it because it's like, it's the human side, the human resources side, right? So when you're a founder, one of the things that we always try to talk about is we have this triangle, and we say, what, you have to protect the company, you have to protect the team, and you have to take care of the customer, right? And so human resources plays a big role in that, because you have to protect, because we live in a highly litigious world, and you want to, the one thing you don't want to do is not know what's going on, and you're on a growth path and you're derailed by something that was preventable, right? And then I think the second part about it is you want to protect your team, because again, we're in a very open public space too, and and lots of things happen in public spaces. So how do we help to protect the team? But then the third part about it is we really want to make sure that the customer has a great experience in the operations. So when you think about the dynamic, you could have the best plan and the best systems and the best vision. And, and that's really the most ironic part about the restaurant industry. We want everything to be perfect. And the two major variables of it are the team that works for us and the customers that come through the door. And both have their own opinions about things, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's a role for human resources now more than ever to help, one, take some of the load off of the operator so they can really focus on delivering great guest and team member experiences. But also because in today's world, team members are looking to come to work at purpose-driven companies. They're coming to work at cultures that are healthy and safe and a great environment, great opportunities. And when you can have somebody on your team that is dedicated to, fulfilling that team member promise, the result of that in the operations comes back to you tenfold for the investment. And even today, when in a more competitive marketplace, the more you can put yourself out there with a great culture, a great environment, you're going to attract the great people.
And I think that kind of goes to where one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is hiring.
Yeah.
So if you have the vision and you have the capital and you have the concept and, now you need the people. And going back to the Founders Growth Summit, one of the speakers was talking about, like, how do you differentiate yourself from the place across the street that is paying a quarter an hour more.
Yeah.
And so there's no loyalty.
Right.
Like creating a culture.
Right.
Of hiring, which
Right.
is nothing. It's separate from the culture of that and the brand that you're creating for the customers. It's like you're kind of fighting a war on two fronts there.
Right.
And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on hiring and kind of like what, like from an operational side, managers and all that kind of thing. Like,
Yep.
What are some tips for people in that phase?
Yeah. Well, I think again, if so I'm going to use the New York Yankees for a minute, because the New York Yankees definitely know who they're looking for.
Yeah.
Right. There is no and if you join the New York Yankees, you definitely know you're joining, and you're not going to have facial hair and all of this, because you're joining for a reason.
Right.
That's why they've sustained so much success since the history of baseball, right? Yeah. They've been in more World Series. They've won more World Series. They are, it's the Legion of Champions, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, that's having such great clarity about who you want to have on your team, because in that same breath, they also know who they don't want on their team. Yeah. And I think that same principle applies to founders, right? I would say, though, in today's world, there's a couple things that I definitely talk to my clients about a lot when it comes to hiring. Hire slow, and then this is why I'm not in HR, but fire fast, right? Yeah. So hire slow. Take your time. You're bringing somebody into your team. It doesn't have to be, and if you're doing the right things in your culture and you're being proactive with your planning, you should know when you're ready to hire, or you should know, like, hey, we're probably going to lose this person because they're going to school, or they're losing this person because you're on top of that, right? But in today's world, people have gotten very good at interviewing because of our good friends in AI, right? And they're I see people with these beautiful resumes and they're superior at interviewing, right? But the one thing I say now with my clients is I want to see about applied learning. I don't want to hear that they know how to write a schedule. Take a piece of paper and a pencil, slide it across the table, and ask them to write how they would do a schedule. See if they can actually don't wait till they're here to find this out. See if they can do it in the interview. When they come, if you're hiring like a general manager or a key team member, have them come do an on-the-job experience for an hour or two. And then at the end, ask them to write a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What did they see? Where did they think you could improve? Because now we could see, do they understand operations? Do they have critical thinking skills? Can they write something down, right? Yeah. And we could actually demonstrate that knowledge and do simple things like even, if we're going to look for somebody in the back of the house, hey, have them go in the back of the house and just show them your knife skills, show them how give them a piece of paper, ask them how they take inventory. Because people have become so great at the interview. And when you're the founder and you hear all the right answers, you're like, oh my gosh, this is my person, right? And then you get them there and you're like, what is going on here? Was that a twin that showed up? And that's why I'm a big one for applied knowledge, demonstrated knowledge right now, because it helps you very quickly separate out who's great at interviewing and who actually knows how to do the job.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful to look for reasons not to hire them.
Yes.
As opposed to you want nothing more than to plug this hole. They're saying all the right things. Now the hole is plugged. You move on.
Right.
But you're gonna have to come back to that at some point.
I think and that's why when you think about the interview process, I always say to founders too, look, you talk 20, they talk 80% of the time. Yeah. Yeah, because the more you talk, the more you're giving them the answers, and now they're just giving it back to you. You're like, oh my God, they even think like me, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, you just gave them all the answers. So, and have multiple people do the interview process too, because you want to take in everyone's perspective, but do it in a way so not everyone's asking the same. If we're all three of us are interviewing, we should all three have different questions that we're asking somebody,
Sure, yeah.
and then compare our notes. Yeah.
So as we get from 5 to 6 to 8 to 10, they've got some leadership team, in place. They've got a concept. They've got the vision dialed in.
Right.
What do you see as sort of the next hurdle? Because we notice a difference between 5 and 10 just in the way that they interact with us, and just the way the conversation is happening, just from a branding point of view and just a general marketing conversation. What do you feel like kind of the next hurdle is, at that point?
So if you're following with the 6 factors of greatness, we've talked about one vision, one team, one direction, and now we have to pull in one system. Because I'm at 5 to 10. Are we running one concept, or are we running 10 concepts that happen to have the same brand name?
Yeah.
And as a result of that, because now things are 10 times more expensive, right? So if we don't have a system to manage labor, and this restaurant's up 1 point, this one's down, now, like I currently have a client that every time they miss 1 point because of how many locations, every time they miss 1 point of labor, it's $300,000.
Wow.
So, and then it's like, well, we can't afford to hire the marketing people. Well, yeah, if we got the labor right, you know what I mean? We could reallocate that money. So at this point, systems and having the right metrics becomes critical, because now a percentage of COGS, a percentage of labor, not looking at the menu, in the last 2 years because we've been busy. All these things are now 10x in their impact. And even though we think we're saving money by not hiring you, we are actually losing money because we didn't hire you. And so I think you have to look at systems is so critical, because you're also bringing on a lot of people at this point. So now we don't have time to train you like we did when there were only 3 people working here. We have to train you to the systems, and the systems are a reflection of your standards, right? So we're going to train you to our systems, and we're going to hold your performance accountable to our systems. And that way, we're not having people conversations with personality conversations. We're having performance, because we have to systematize the business so that we can get predictable results. Because the next step is, how do we continue to raise capital to continue to grow? And if we can't show that we have scalable systems in place at this point, it's very hard for people to get behind you, because a couple of mistakes here or there, like, for instance, and I'm sure you saw this, not taking a price increase or taking so many price increases that now you have a customer transaction issue.
Yeah.
Those don't make you attractive for people to want to invest in you as you want to continue to grow, because it shows you don't have control of the business at that point.
Yeah, and we notice the sort of symptoms of that when they're ordering, and then they order a giant order of all the new menus, of all the rollout, 500 of these, 500 brunch. They got the A-frames and all the different promotional items, and then a week later they're ordering them all again. And it's like, what happened? Well, they forgot something.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that there would be an economy of scale,
Right.
but it actually winds up being more kind of expensive, because you have these mistakes, and there's 6-figure mistakes at this point.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a new middle that you have to get through.
Right. Right. That's every stage of growth. You're always kind of going back to ground zero again for a moment, because you have to, you have to reset, regroup, reframe, and go again, right? Because it's just growth, right? And I think that's where people, though, sometimes go, well, we added 2 more restaurants. It wasn't that big of a deal. Really? Because you just added like 200 people, 10 new managers, and now you have hundreds of thousands of more customers coming in. So it's not like we just added like 2 more cookies to the cookie jar. We've added a lot of complexity in this. So, and if you think about it, what's the experience we want the team member and the customer to have? They have to have a consistent experience, and systematizing, it's that. And when you really think about, it's not just operational systems, to your point, Andrew, it's the marketing system Like,
Yeah.
if we're all doing a St. Patrick's Day, are we all rolling it out at the same time? Or, this one, oh, I missed it, right? Or I put mine out after, at the end of February or whatever it is. But you want that consistency, because consistency builds confidence in your team member and in your customer. And that, to me, is a secret competitive advantage.
Yeah. 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 And that's the key, I think, to also, we have a lot of customers that have different concepts. They have 5 or 6 locations, but they're different concepts. And it's really 5 single unit concepts.
Yeah. Right.
So then when St. Patty's, like I always use Super Bowl and Valentine's Day as an example, because you're one or the other, right? You're not having date night during the Super Bowl. So you got to promote one of those. And like, how do you do that at scale? And like, things are like last minute, they just completely
there's
miss
no
it.
planning. It's just like they come together, they have the idea one night. It's like 2 weeks before the event, and they decide to put something together.
Yeah, and then it winds up being a missed opportunity. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's I see a lot that people go from idea to implementation. But there's no okay, how are we going to inform everyone? What do we have to implement? What do we have to kind of get in place so we can measure our success? And then now we'll implement it, and then we're going to measure if it was successful or not. But we just go from idea to implement,
Right.
and it becomes like a chaotic race, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously the results are hit or miss.
Yeah.
And so I kind of liken it to the idea that let's play, like I'm a wildly competitive person and I just want to play to win, right? It's not play to win to crush everybody. It's play to win so we can grab as much market share as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And when it's well thought out,
Right. It has
I
to
get all the market share because I'm also banking that other people are doing it wildly chaotic. So I win again because I deliver, right?
Yeah. Your process is what's going to be the key.
Yeah.
To beating your competitor.
Exactly.
Right? Because they're not organized.
Right. Being proactive is a superpower. It's just not one that in the restaurant industry, we reward people for being great planners. We clap for people who are like, oh, you got us out of the weeds. We were getting crushed and you did it.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. But we never sit there going, oh my God, you did the greatest plan ever. Right?
Strategy.
But if we changed our mindset about that and said, holy shoot, man, you did the greatest plan ever, and we opened 4 restaurants in 12 months, we should be celebrating the heck out of that.
Yeah. I love the saying, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'll spend 4 hours sharpening the axe. Right?
Right.
Perfect.
That's good.
And then one more thing about kind of systems and I feel like these days there's so much technology out there.
Yep.
And you don't have to give me examples of specific technology, but I guess examples of how to use technology to really pinpoint specific things, like you talked about, like measuring COGS and things like that. Yeah. Are there specific KPIs that you feel like within the business that there's technology out there? I'm sure there's a million different platforms, but like the technology exists for you to be able to measure these things. And then what do you think, in your professional opinion, are kind of the KPIs at that stage, at that size?
Right. I'll answer two ways to go with this. First, in KPIs, I do a whole thing with founders where I can show 50 different KPIs, right? So I can measure everything and then it still means nothing.
Right.
So in where we are specifically in today's economy, though, I really do think that there's some very specific KPIs people should be looking at. One is customer transactions, because to me, that is the greatest indicator if you're winning or losing. Like, if your customer transactions are positive, that is good. If you're not, then we have a different conversation, right? Sure. And then if I marry that with average check, that's the other one. So are we getting more customers, and are they spending equal or more than what they were spending before? Because that gives me the second KPI of the health of my customer, right? And if they're not spending as much as they were before, then that tells me that, because if you think about it just in simple math, if I have 100,000 customers go through a year and they all drop $1, I just lost $100,000 in sales.
Right.
So I have to be looking at those two things, right? So those two things are very important in my mind, because they give us the health of it. The other ones that are important, obviously, are what is the profitability of your restaurant? Because if you are running a business and your restaurant is not profitable, we have another challenge here.
Yeah.
And if you're not profitable, because then you can go back and say, well, now let's look at labor, let's look at COGS, let's look at controllable costs, let's look at sales, right? But the health of the restaurant is it profitable or not? And I say those things because when you think about growing a business, you want to set yourself up not to survive, not to thrive, but to create value. So at a certain point, if you have to go get a line of credit, you have to go to the SBA, you have to go get funding, you know what the value of your business is. And those are the metrics that people that invest, they look at those numbers, right? Yeah. So, and profitability is the byproduct of being able to manage a restaurant successfully, right? Sure. So those are to me, in today's world, those are very important metrics for people to be watching because they really do let you, in three metrics, you can see the health of your customers and the health of your restaurant, right? The other one I could look at would be employee turnover or retention, because that would tell me the health of my team. Right? Because that's a very, it's a hidden cost expense, right? Now, what are the tools that can help me with that? There's some outstanding tools out there today, more than we've ever had in the industry. And I think that's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
But if you really start to think about it, what would I be trying to do if I'm trying to increase sales? I've got to be looking at things like, what does my loyalty program look like? It's stunning to me that people won't even take with the Toast POS system is very popular. And they have a pretty low-level loyalty program, and it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, and Toast readily admits that. Yeah. And it's not that expensive. And I'm like, just use it then. Yeah. Because just get the data. Right. Get the data. Yeah. Get the email address. Get the phone number. So what? It doesn't do 1 million things like something else does. Just start getting I'm going to wait until we find the perfect solution. Oh, my goodness gracious. Just get the data. Yeah. So when it's a snowy day here in Long Island, you could pop out a message really quick, as you know very well from your side of the business,
For
right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that's one piece of technology, no matter how it comes, you have to be able to collect data. And I don't care what platform you use, but please try to avoid punch cards because there's no data to collect. Okay. But man, there are so simple solutions that could be immediately used for data. Yeah. So I think anything that would allow you to look at data is a tool that is well worth the investment in, right? And then I think the other one that operators just haven't they're coming into it, but they're still, if they leaned in a little bit harder in it, it's really AI. Because AI today for a restaurateur has the opportunity, I could do so much with it. I could have it calculate food costs for me. I could have it do competitive analysis for me. I could have it help me figure out my vision, my mission, and my values in an articulated way that makes it easy for everyone to understand. Yeah. I can have it at least help me understand, social media post and what should go in it, and, do my own SWOT analysis on my business. There's just so many ways to use AI, and it's really it's not a tool that we've embraced as much as we could be. Yeah. But not that it's perfect, but if it saves you 3 hours of time because it can figure it out in 5 minutes, why not? Right? I mean, my gosh, time is very valuable. Yeah.
That was an excellent answer, by the way.
Yeah, that was great.
I try my best to answer.
That was excellent.
Trying to keep up with you and Jenny right now.
And I think another thing I've learned from, we get excited about different technology and bells and whistles, and God forbid you get on a Zoom call with a sales rep who then is just overwhelming you with all the bells and whistles. So starting with the KPIs for the business first. Yeah. And whenever I vet like a software or I'm looking to see if something is going to work for my business, I let the sales rep tell me everything, and what are the core features, and I know what my KPIs are, and if those core features align with the KPIs, then it's probably a good fit. But if I tell them, do you have this? Oh, of course we have this, and it winds up being a fringe feature, then I'm letting the salesperson kind of take me away. So I think I love the idea of what are the business solutions that I'm looking to solve, and then kind of reverse engineering the technology, whatever it might be, so that the core of that technology aligns with the KPIs. You're more likely to pick something that you're going to stick with, as opposed to jumping from software to software.
Right, because it's expensive to jump from software to software.
Oh, yeah.
But I will tell you, this is one of the things that I think you both do really, really well, is your focus on KPIs. I'm not, as a growth strategist, I'm not always the favorite person of the marketing groups, because I really do want to know What are you doing to help us drive, like specifically, what are you going to do to help drive sales, drive loyalty, drive traffic, help us with increase the average check? And it's like, well, we're going to do this and we're going to get all these impressions. That does not make me the favorite with them because I think impressions are wonderful. They're very important for so many reasons, as you've always articulated. But we have to get a behavioral change too, right? And that's one of the things I think you do so well with what you do with the menus and your digital marketing programs is that you're truly trying to support behavioral change that translates into helping that operator either make money, save money, or get more people in. And I think that's because you start with the KPI in mind too, which not everybody does.
I appreciate that. And it's harder that way because if it doesn't work, the numbers are going to show.
Right.
But the reality, all impressions you go out in the street and start screaming. But if you're screaming English and you're in Germany, no one's going to know what you're saying. So you've got to be speaking the right language with the people and resonating with them, which means that now it's going to move the needle on how much they care about your message, and so it's harder to live that way,
right?
Because it's hard to get results, but that's where the true value is.
Exactly. And that's what I think is just what so exceptional what you do, and a differentiator from other people that are out there saying that, we do this, we do digital marketing, we help with this, we help, and it's all true, and that's nothing against anyone else, but your ability to connect it back to real results, it's the same thing. Many people could say they're a consultant, and, and that's good too, but I can, as a growth strategist, we can tie it back to real results. We could say this is a company that actually did grow, right? Or this is, because growth sometimes isn't always about, I want to add more locations. Sometimes growth is, how do we move from being a $4 million, like this was a great illustration. I had a client one time, they were doing 1.5 million, but within 2 years, they were at almost 3.5 million,
wow.
right? Because out of the same four walls. But a lot of it was because they were a little bit landlocked. So it was like, all right, well, how do we get more out of what you're doing then? And now today he's even doing more out of that, which is a testament to them, right? And that to me is, everyone always thinks that, growth has to be locations, or even in their career, they think, well, we can't hire these people because we're not opening 100 restaurants. Right. I know, but you're giving them opportunities to work with you as a founder. Maybe get them engaged in social media, get them engaged in other things that you're doing, get them engaged in your culinary side. People want to grow personally and professionally too, and it always isn't hierarchically.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Oh. So we're almost up with our time.
Where does the time go with you and Jenny?
I know.
Come on.
I knew
chit-chat
I knew this was going to fly.
Yeah.
Two things. One, I think if you're ever in the area, we'd love to have you back to continue the growth conversation of 10 to 20 to 50 to 100. But if you could give a little kind of high-level overview of, what happens at 10 to 20, like, I feel like it becomes maybe a little bit more about capital at that point, and just maybe a little teaser for what the next podcast could be about.
You're so good, Andrew. Well, one, thank you so much, and it's been great being here with both of you, and just always a pleasure. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And it is amazing how fast the time goes, though.
I know.
Yeah, wow, that is something. Here's what I would say: when you get to 10 units, you have to stop building for the points of pain you are in, and you have to start building to scale. And so now you're not hiring team members to fill holes. You're not doing a plan to get you through the next year. You're not building a system to take care of a situation you're having. You are truly becoming strategic in your direction. And because now what you're doing at 10 units is you're actually looking at everything that we put from this point forward has to get us to 50. It's not going to we're done incrementally adding. Now we're strategically moving. So the big shift is you have to become more strategic, because in becoming more strategic, that helps lay the foundation for what is your strategy for funding your growth. And if you think that you're just going to continue to do it incrementally, that's where you get caught with, which we're going to, unfortunately, we'll see, people will be overextended. They will have taken on the wrong debt at the wrong time. They will have taken on high interest debt when maybe they could have rolled up their balance sheet and done something different, right? So I think that when you get to a certain size, there's a big shift that it's a big and subtle shift, but you move from we're adding and we've built our company, and we're adding to now we're becoming very strategic. And it's the strategy that now drives you. No longer is it the store locations or the situations. The strategy is driving you, and your strategy should be pointing towards some sort of an event, whether you want to pull the trigger on it or not pull the trigger on it. Meaning that it's an event where you're going to go seek capital. It's an event where you're going to exit. It's an event where you're going to bring somebody on. But you should have, if you're strategically looking at that, you know that you're driving to an event, and then you're also in a position to pick out what event is best for you. Because you don't want to work. This business is beautiful. I love this business. I think it's the greatest business in the whole wide world. But it's not for the faint of heart either. So you don't want to work your whole. And this is what, unfortunately, so many people found out in COVID. They're like, I worked in my business for 20 years and it was worth. Oh my God, it's heart crushing, right? You can get emotional about it. But that was because they were working in their business, or they got their business to this big, but they never thought about, how do I create financial value in my business?
Yeah.
So that it pays off for me when I'm ready for it to do that.
That's a great point. And it's like, getting to 10, vision, systems, people, which is a strategy for sure.
Totally.
But then you get into like a real strategy and I love the idea of the event. What is I don't want to use the term finish line, but what is the definition of success? Where are we going, and how do we know when we get there? And what does that look like for me, for my life, for my kids, for my staff, for whoever, right?
Right.
And that's a really cool, it's an exciting time. It's got to be.
Right.
Yeah.
I kind of look at it this way. Like there's from, 1 to 10, you're strategically moving to get a foundation for scalable growth. So you get predictable results, you've got consistency, and there's confidence. People feel confident that they're with you.
Right.
When you get to from that 10 to going forward, now we're doing strategy for scalability. Because at that point, if you're not looking at how we're building something for 50, and we get to 50, you have to be thinking, how do we get, because in the restaurant industry, the implosion point for most organizations happens right around 100 units. And if you haven't been investing in doing the right things, you'll because now it's so big, and one mistake takes the whole tank down, right?
Right.
But for the most of my clients, when we're getting that point, we're so far ahead of it that we want to sail over that 100. Because once you hit 100, you're a machine at that point, and you're just, and it becomes, and this is why we're going to see other brands this year that will be at 100 units, and they're going to get, there's one out there right on the street right now. It's got not even 100, it's got 200 units, and I think it's got a valuation of $1 billion on it right now. But that's because they did it right.
That's when those fundamentals, those foundational issues, as you layer things on, if it's not strong, the whole thing topples over.
Yep. Yeah. They said the only place to build a house on shaky foundation is Southern California. Otherwise, everybody else, you never build a house unless it's on, solid foundation.
That's right.
Why would you build a business on a shaky foundation?
Sure.
Makes no sense.
All right. So last thing I wanted to go over, the Founders Growth Summit.
Yes.
We attended last year, and you had us speak, which was really awesome.
Oh, you did such great. It was so great having you. You did such a great job.
Thank you. And it was just a great. It was small enough to really. I talked to everybody there,
right?
And I'm sure that it'll grow, and that won't be the case. But it was nice to be there in that kind of intimate vibe. And we talked to people with one location, dozens of locations.
Right.
And it was just like an amazing experience I'm not even a restaurant owner.
Yeah.
But you're helping so many.
Yeah. But and we really got to know, the pain points and really understood the founder,
right,
from being there. So I'd love you to finish by just telling us a little bit about that. I just wanted any restaurant owner who's listening, no matter how many locations you have, you got to go to this Founders Growth Summit. I mean,
thanks, Andrew.
It's a game changer.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Tell us a little about it.
We started the Founders Growth Summit because being a founder is a very lonely thing, right? And you're kind of spinning in your head, and you want to talk about your business all the time, but your family doesn't want to hear about it anymore. And your friends, they want to hear about it, and then they give you advice, and then you're like, I can never talk to my friend again. And, so it's a very lonely experience sometimes. times. And one of the things that I saw in my business was that when you brought a few founders together, it was the first time that they had ever been with like-minded people. And if you go to some of these big industry conferences where they're great, but they're not wired for founders. So you could be, two, three founders are trying to find themselves in a sea of 700 people, right? And so seeing that gap and knowing that everything we're doing is working with founder-led businesses, we started the Founders Growth Summit. And our goal was to bring together like-minded founders at an event where it was just all founders so that they could exchange, they could network, and they could hear from other founders who have founded their own company too as speakers, share their story, share their process, share in their way. And I think one of the most powerful things that comes from that is we're building a community now. And that community is very active, and they all connect and talk and do. And so our goal is to, our plan is to have our next Founders Growth Summit in February of 2026. Okay. Location to be announced shortly, but we're very excited about it, and we will make sure you're the first to know. Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. But we are very excited about it, and I think the founders that attended it, though, they loved me because here again, right? I'm a founder. I have this menu. I'm trying to do digital marketing. I don't know who to call, who does this. And then here you are with your 5S strategy and talking about really how to make the menu deliver, profitability and margins and do the magic that menu should do. So think about all the people you helped at that too. So as much as you met people, they were thrilled to meet you at the same time.
Yeah. No, the energy was great. Mm-hmm. And we were all in this room, and there was a lot of knowledge and experience in that room that was being shared and traded back and forth. So we loved it. It was great.
Yeah. It was great having you. Yeah. So it's good. It's all positive. I think, when you bring like-minded people together, everybody wants all boats to rise.
Sure.
And that, to me, is really where the power is. And it's just such a great way for us all to connect together to really take people that are truly trying to blaze paths, new paths, and be the game changers of it. And to be a part of that journey, I think, is one of the most rewarding, amazing things to be a part of. So,
agreed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So until next time, when we talk about 20 to 2,000 locations.
All right. Let's do it.
Kathleen Wood, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
You.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Great. Thank you, Jenny. This has been a pleasure, really a pleasure. Yeah. And thanks for everything you're doing every day to help, to really help and support people.
Yeah. You too.
Thank you.
All right.